My fiancé strapped me to the operating table. Give Lila your kidney, and he'll marry you. I lay on the hospital bed, watching as police burst through the door behind him. As the Hale family's long-lost birth daughter, ID endured 6 years of bullying from their adopted daughter, cold neglect from my own parents, and been reduced to nothing more than an organ bank by my fiancé. But no one knew ID installed a location tracker and auto-recording app on my phone long before this. Even fewer knew that I came from a world ruled by law and I only sent scumbags to prison. Damon Cole. I smiled. Do you have any idea how many years you get for kidnapping? The first thing I registered when I woke was the tight restraint around my wrists. It wasn't gentle. It was medical-grade restraints, cinched tight enough to dig into my skin, the rough fabric rubbing raw against my wrist bones. I opened my eyes to a blindingly white ceiling, the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The air reeked of antiseptic, cut through with a faint mildew stench, like some disused back alley clinic. I turned my head. Damon Cole stood at the bedside, in a crisp gray suit, not a hair out of place. He held a file folder in his hand, and the way he looked at me was like a man assessing the quality of a piece of property. Awake. His voice was soft, just like it always was. I moved my lips, my throat dry and aching. Where am I? A private clinic. Damon stepped closer, leaning down over me. Don't be scared. It's perfectly safe. Safe. Coming from his mouth. The word was laughable. I tried to lift my arms, but the restraints didn't give an inch. My gaze swept the room. No windows. A heavy steel door. A rickety medical cart pushed up against the wall. A tray of surgical instruments laid out on top. The metal glinted cold in the fluorescent light. Damon Cole, I said, and was surprised at how steady my voice came out. Explain. He flipped open the file folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and held it up to my face. It was an organ donation consent form. My name was already signed at the bottom right corner. The handwriting was a near-perfect imitation, but the final stroke of the signature was too deliberate. I never wrote my name like that. Lila's condition has gotten worse. Damon's voice was flat, like he was reading a weather report. End-stage renal failure. She has a month, at most. I said nothing. He kept going, his tone edged with a righteous earnestness that made my skin crawl. You're the only matching donor, Aurora. Only you can save her. I stared at him. ID stared at that face for 3 years, once thinking the fine lines at the corners of his eyes when he smiled were tender. Now, all I saw was calculation oozing from every pore. So, I said. Damon set the form back in the folder, bracing both hands on the edge of the bed to lean in closer. His breath fanned over my face, still carrying that familiar woody cologne. Once, ID liked the smell. Now, it made me sick to my stomach. All you have to do is give Lila your kidney, he said, slow and deliberate. His eyes locked on my face for any sign of weakness. Once the surgery's over, I'll marry you. I promise. I almost laughed out loud. Truly, I almost did. But I held it back. Just blinked slowly, letting tears well up in my eyes until my vision blurred. When Damon saw that, the corner of his mouth tugged up into a satisfied smile. He knew how ID spent the last 6 years brought back to the Hale family at 16. Only to find my parents' love already belonged entirely to their adopted daughter, Lila. He knew ID studied until my eyes burned, bent over backward to please everyone, just hoping they'd look at me twice. He knew ID bit my tongue every time Lila pushed me around behind closed doors. Every time classmates whispered that the birth daughter was nothing compared to the adopted one. In his eyes, I, Aurora Hale, was a fool and masochist, a sad, desperate thing starved for love, willing to give up every last shred of my dignity for a crumb of affection. So he was certain I'd jump at the title of Mrs. Cole, faced with that pittance of love, and accept every last thing he demanded of me, even if it meant being kidnapped, strapped to an operating table, and having a kidney cut out of me while I was still alive. Even then, I'd obey him without a single complaint. What ridiculous arrogance. Damon, I whispered, my voice rough and shaking just enough to sound convincing. You'll marry me. I swear it. He answered immediately. Reaching out to touch my face, I turned my head away. The move made him freeze for a split second, but he quickly recovered his mask of gentle concern. Aurora, don't be difficult. Lila's your sister. It's only right that you save her. Then why kidnap me? I asked. A single tear slipping down my cheek right on cue. You could have just talked to me about it. Talked. And would you have agreed? Damon laughed, a sharp edge of impatience bleeding through. You've been avoiding me for weeks, haven't you? He was right. I had been avoiding him, ever since a month prior, when ID stumbled across Lila's blood type in the family's medical reports and found it was a perfect match for mine. Ever since 2 weeks before, when ID walked past the study and heard Damon on the phone. His voice low and sharp. Yeah, the forced surgery plan makes sure she doesn't wake up and cause a scene the kidney's too valuable to mess up. From that moment on, ID known this day was coming. I just hadn't thought he'd be this desperate. When's the doctor getting here? I asked softly, dropping my gaze to stare at the restraints around my wrists. Already on the way. 10 more minutes. Damon checked his watch. The surgery will be quick, and he'll take care of you the whole time after. He said it so casually, like he was planning a regular dinner date. Not the forced removal of my internal organ. I took a deep breath, lifting my head to look at him. My eyes were red, my lips trembling, every inch the picture of a broken, defeated girl. Damon was clearly thrilled with the performance. He turned to the medical cart, starting to check over the surgical instruments, his back to me as he spoke. Just relax. The anesthetic will make you forget all about this. By the time you wake up, it'll all be over. Yeah, it would all be over. I stared at his broad back, my gaze sliding past his shoulder to lock on that heavy steel door. Beneath the crack, a faint shadow was moving, slow and steady. Damon, I called softly. Yeah, do you love me? He froze for a second, but didn't turn around. Of course I do, even if I only have one kidney left. Don't be ridiculous. A thread of irritation finally slipped through his calm facade. Kidney transplants are perfectly safe. You'll live a completely normal life after this. Normal life. Missing a kidney. And he called that a normal life. I closed my eyes. And more tears fell. This time, they weren't an act. They were tears of pure, bitter amusement at how absurd this all was. Footsteps stopped outside the door. The shadow beneath the crack went still. Damon hadn't noticed a thing. He picked up a syringe, holding it up to the light to check the clear liquid inside. A single drop squeezing out of the needle's tip. The doctor's running late. He frowned, turning toward me. I'll give you the preoperative sedative first, just to help you relax. He never finished the sentence. A dull, heavy crash sounded from outside the steel door. Damon's head snapped around. Then came a second crash. A third, not knocking, but ramming the door open. What the hell? His face drained of color. He dropped the syringe and sprinted for the door. He was too late. A sharp crack of splitting metal echoed through the room, and the entire door was slammed inward by a massive force. Blinding light flooding in from the hallway beyond. Several dark figures filled the doorway. The man at the front held up his badge, his voice loud and ice-cold. Police. Everyone. Hands where we can see them. Damon froze in place, the file folder slipping from his hand to clatter on the floor. Slowly, he turned to look at me. I still lay on the bed, strapped down, tear tracks still fresh on my face. But I was smiling, crying, and smiling at him with a brightness that bordered on cruel. Sorry, Mr. Cole, I said, my voice soft and clear, every word cutting straight through the chaos. I come from a world ruled by law. No one's here to watch your lame grovel for forgiveness redemption arc. Police flooded the room. 2 moved quickly to pin Damon to the wall, while another hurried to the bedside. It was a female officer, who made quick work of untying the restraints around my wrists. Aurora Hale. she confirmed. That's me. I sat up, rubbing at the red, raw marks on my wrists. You got the location tracking and the recordings, right? We did. She nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. The evidence you provided is rock solid. Across the room, Damon was pressed face first into the wall, the sharp click of handcuffs echoing as they locked around his wrists. He struggled to twist around, staring at me with bloodshot eyes. You knew this whole time. I didn't answer. I just swung my legs over the edge of the bed, bare feet touching the cold linoleum floor, and walked over to him. I stood on my tiptoes, leaning in until my mouth was right next to his ear. My voice low enough for only him to hear. I never drank that water you spiked. The vial of anesthetic is still in your car. The fingerprints should be pretty clear. Oh, and the chat logs on your phone. The bank transfers. The recorded calls with Dr. Clark. I backed all of it up 3 times. One for the police, one for my attorney, and the last one. I stepped back, smiling at the way his face had gone sheet white. I'm saving it for the courtroom. To play for you. Nice and slow. Damon's lips trembled. He tried to speak, but not a single sound came out. The officers dragged him toward the door. He stumbled, twisting around to look at me again, and for the first time, I saw real, unfiltered panic in his eyes. I stood where I was and waved, like I was saying goodbye to a piece of trash. The female officer handed me a jacket. Ms. Hale, do you need us to take you to a hospital to get checked out? No. I took the jacket, slipping it on. But I do need to come down to the station to give a formal statement. Right now. Right now. I bent down, picking up the forged organ donation form off the floor, and tore it cleanly in half. Some things are better settled sooner rather than later. As I walked out of the room, I took one last look at the place that had almost become my operating chamber. The fluorescent lights still hummed. The surgical instruments still glinted cold on the cart. But it was all over. No, not quite. I stepped outside the clinic. The midday sun bright enough to make me squint. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the smell of dust and freedom. The hospital door swung fully open, light from the hallway flooding in and making me squint. Standing in the doorway wasn't Damon Cole. It was my best friend, Vivian Reed, and a man in plainclothes beside her. When Vivian saw me, her eyes went red instantly. She rushed over and threw her arms around me, her voice shaking. I was so scared. If something had happened to you, I'd never have forgiven myself. I patted her back. It's okay. It's over now. The plainclothes man stepped forward, pulling out his badge. Ms. Aurora Hale, M. Owen Carter, with the Metropolitan Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit. I nodded, pushing myself up off the bed. My legs were a little unsteady, but I held myself upright. You got the location tracking and the recordings from my phone? I asked. Detective Carter looked at me, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. We did, but I have to say, Ms. Hale, you're a lot calmer than I expected. I tugged at the corner of my mouth in a faint smile. What else was I supposed to do? Cry for Damon Cole? Vivian let go of me, pulling a bottle of water out of her bag and handing it over. Drink this first. You've been missing for 3 days. We've been out of our minds looking for you. 3 days. So I'd been unconscious that long. I took the water, twisted the cap off, and drank a few mouthfuls. The cold water slid down my throat, clearing my head a little. What's the situation out there? I asked. Damon Cole's already in custody, being transported back to the station as we speak, Detective Carter said. The doctor and nurses at this underground clinic have all been taken in too. Though he paused, looking at me. When did you start suspecting him? I sat down on the edge of the bed, gesturing for them to do the same. Vivian pulled over a chair, and Detective Carter leaned against the wall. A month ago, I said. The family's medical reports came back, and I saw the abnormalities in Lila's blood work and kidney function. Lila is the Hale family's adopted daughter. She was taken in 16 years before I was brought home. The whole family treats her like their precious baby. My voice was flat. The reports said she was in end-stage renal failure. Needed a transplant. And my blood type and tissue match were a perfect fit for hers. Detective Carter's brow furrowed. And then Damon started acting strange. I kept going. Before that, had always been lukewarm at best toward me. The Hale family wanted to set up an arranged marriage between us. And he thought I was some random birth daughter who showed up out of nowhere. Not good enough for his family name. Vivian let out a cold laugh. As if he was ever good enough for you. But starting a month ago, he suddenly turned on the charm. I said. Drove me to and from campus every day. Bought me gifts. Said he wanted to take our relationship seriously. I thought he'd finally come around. I smiled. The expression holding no warmth. Until 2 weeks ago. Detective Carter asked. What happened 2 weeks ago? That night. I was at home. I said. I walked past the study. And heard Damon on the phone inside. I closed my eyes. And I can still hear that voice. Low and sharp. Cold with calculation. He said. Yeah. The forced surgery plan needs to be ready. Make sure she doesn't wake up and cause a scene. The kidney's too valuable to mess up. I stood outside that door. And my blood turned to ice. When I got back to my room, I looked up every single law on organ transplantation. Live donation has to be completely voluntary. Any coercion is a felony. That's when I knew Damon never planned to ask me. He just wanted my kidney. Whether I wanted to give it or not. The room went quiet for a few seconds. Vivian squeezed my hand tight. Detective Carter's expression had turned grim. So you started preparing? Yeah. I nodded. I did 3 things. First, I installed a location sharing and auto recording app on my phone. If the phone ever moved more than 30 feet away from me, or detected abnormal movement, it would automatically send my location to Vivian and start recording. Vivian spoke up. I got the alert 3 days ago. At 2:17 in the afternoon. The location showed Aurora in an abandoned industrial park on the edge of the city. I called the police immediately. Second, I kept going. I made a deal with Vivian. If I ever went missing for more than 24 hours, she was to call the police immediately. No matter what anyone said about she went on a trip voluntarily or any other garbage. And the third, Detective Carter asked. I pushed up the sleeve of my hospital gown, showing him the inside of my arm. There was a tiny, fresh scar there. Barely healed. Micro-tracking device. I said. A friend at med school helped me implant it under the skin. Even if they took my phone, they'd never find it. They could still track my location. Detective Carter's eyebrows shot up. He looked at me, his expression complicated. Ms. Hale. This level of preparation, it doesn't seem like something you threw together at the last minute. It wasn't. I admitted freely. These 6 years living with the Hales taught me one thing: always have a backup plan. Because they were never going to be on my side. Vivian's eyes went red again. Detective Carter was quiet for a moment, then asked, do you suspect your family was involved in this? No. I shook my head. They just didn't care. As long as Lila lived. What did it matter if I lost a kidney? I was the birth daughter. After all, I was supposed to be the bigger person. Supposed to let my sister have her way. I'd said those words for 6 years. Now, saying them out loud, I felt nothing. When did the police start monitoring this place? I asked. 2 days ago, Detective Carter said. After Vivian filed the missing persons report. We tracked your location to this underground clinic, but we didn't have enough probable cause to breach the premises. So we set up surveillance around the perimeter. We intercepted some of the communications. Confirmed they were preparing for an illegal organ transplant surgery. But we needed irrefutable proof, preferably Damon admitting his criminal intent to your face. He looked at me. So we waited. For you to wake up. For him to say those words out loud. You got all of it on the recording? I asked. Every single word. Crystal clear. He nodded. Kidnapping. Unlawful imprisonment. attempted aggravated assault, falsifying medical documents. It's enough to put him away for a very long time. I let out a long, deep breath. The tightness in my chest that had been there for 3 days finally lifted. Ms. Hale, Detective Carter said suddenly, you said you knew about Damon's plan ahead of time. Why did you still go through with meeting him? I looked him dead in the eye. Because I needed him to say it out loud. I needed him to stand in front of me and tell me with a straight face that I should give up my kidney and be grateful for the chance. I needed that recording, every single word of it. So he couldn't lie his way out of it in court. Detective Carter stared at me for a long time. Then he nodded. I understand. He stood up. Right now. We need you to come down to the station to give your formal statement and hand over all the evidence you have. Also, about Lila and the Hale family. Have you looked into Lila? I cut him off. His expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. We contacted the Hale family. Your parents said they had no idea this was happening, and Lila said she's been in the hospital recovering and had absolutely no knowledge of Damon's actions. I laughed. A full, genuine laugh. Detective Carter, I said, did you verify Lila's kidney disease diagnosis? We did a preliminary check. There are medical records on file. Then I suggest you dig deeper, I said. My voice calm. Find a board-certified nephrologist you trust, and have them re-evaluate every single one of her test results. You think the diagnosis is fake? I suspect everything, I said, especially when something is this convenient. Detective Carter jotted it down in his notebook. Vivian handed me my coat and shoes. I changed out of the hospital gown, and when I pulled on my own clothes, I felt like I was finally back in my own body. Before I walked out of the room, I looked back at the hospital bed, the restraints, the cart of surgical instruments. Goodbye. Never again. There were still a few officers in the hallway, collecting evidence, taking photos, documenting the scene. A young officer walked over with an evidence bag. Ms. Hale, is this yours? Inside the bag was my phone. It is. I took it. The battery was dead, but the data should all still be there. Vivian handed me a portable charger. Charge it up. You have no idea how many location alerts it sent over 3 days. I thought my heart was going to give out. I'm sorry I scared you, I said softly. Don't be ridiculous. Her eyes were red again. If something had happened to you, I'd never have forgiven myself for not seeing what a piece of garbage Damon was sooner. I hugged her. Detective Carter was on the phone nearby, his voice sharp and serious. Yeah, bring everyone back to the station. Separate interrogations. Focus on Dr. Clark first. He definitely knows more than he's saying. He hung up and turned to me. Ms. Hale, the car's outside. We can head back to the station now. Okay. When I walked out the front doors of the clinic, the midday sun was warm on my face. I squinted, looking at the police cars parked across the street, and the city skyline in the distance. The smell of freedom. It was that simple. Oh, right. I remembered something suddenly, turning to Detective Carter. In Damon's car, under the passenger seat, there should be an open bottle of water. There's residual anesthetic in it. His fingerprints will be on the inside of the bottle. And probably mine too, but I'm the victim. It makes sense I touched it. Also, the password to his cloud backup is Lila's birthday. 0815. He probably didn't delete all the chat logs. Detective Carter stared at me again, that same complicated look in his eyes. Ms. Hale, he said, you remind me of some of the veteran detectives I've worked with. They have the same habit: 3 copies of every piece of evidence. 3 backup plans for every scenario. I pulled open the car door, sliding into the back seat. Because I've been burned before, and I never want to be burned again. The car pulled away, driving away from the place that had almost become my nightmare. I watched the streetlights pass by outside the window, and thought back to the day I'd first been brought to the Hale family. 6 years prior. It had been a sunny day just like this one. ID stood in the middle of that grand, opulent living room in a faded hand-me-down dress, completely out of my depth. Lila had walked over in a pretty dress, taken my hand, and smiled. "Hi, sister. This is your home now." Back then, ID thought ID finally found a family. I learned later that some places, no matter how long you live there, will never be more than a house you're visiting. Some people, even if you share the same blood, will never see you as anything more than an outsider. I looked away from the window, staring straight ahead. The police car was driving through the city, toward the station. This was the path I was meant to take, with the law, not with tears, with evidence, not with begging. Damon Cole, Layla Bennett, the Hale family. I'd see them all in court. The one-way mirror in the interrogation room reflected the harsh white light back at me. I sat on the other side, a mug of hot water in my hands, and watched Damon inside. He sat on the metal chair, handcuffs looped around the table edge, still holding his back straight, clinging to that ridiculous, fragile sense of dignity. His hair was messy, his suit wrinkled, but the arrogance in his eyes was still there. Detective Carter pushed open the door. Sitting down across from him, Damon Cole. "Let's talk about what happened." Damon lifted his chin. "I want my lawyer." "Your lawyer will be here." Detective Carter set down his notebook. "But first, you can explain why you unlawfully imprisoned Aurora Hale. And why you tried to force her into an organ transplant." "I didn't force her," Damon said, like he actually believed it. "She agreed." Detective Carter looked at him and pressed play on the recorder. The conversation Damon and I had had in that hospital room 3 days prior flowed out of the speakers. "All you have to do is give Lila your kidney. Once the surgery's over, I'll marry you. I promise." "When's the doctor getting here?" "Already on the way. 10 more minutes. The surgery will be quick. And I'll take care of you the whole time after." Damon's face finally crumpled. "That's coercion." Detective Carter turned off the recorder. "Using marriage as leverage to force her into surgery, and she was strapped to a bed with restraints, with no ability to leave. That's not consent. It was for her own safety." Damon raised his voice. "She was emotionally unstable. I was afraid she'd hurt herself." "Is that why you signed the organ donation form for her?" Detective Carter slid the forged document across the table. The handwriting analysis came back. "That's not Aurora Hale's signature." Damon's mouth pressed into a thin, hard line. "Lila's dying." He switched tactics, his voice edged with desperation. "Detective, that's a human life. Aurora's her sister. It's only right that she saves her. The law does not require a sister to donate a kidney to her sibling." Detective Carter's voice was ice cold, especially not when live organ donation requires full, uncoerced consent. "Any form of pressure is a felony." Damon said nothing. He stared at the table, his fingers curling into fists unconsciously. I set down my mug and stood up. Vivian grabbed my arm. "You're going in there?" "Yeah," I said. "There are some things I need to say to his face." Detective Carter saw me through the one-way mirror and gave a small nod. I pushed open the door to the interrogation room. Damon looked up, and when he saw me, a flash of panic crossed his face, quickly replaced by rage. "Aurora, have you had enough of this little game?" he snapped. "Lila's in the hospital dying, and you're here wasting time." I sat down across from him, right next to Detective Carter. "Damon Cole," I said, my voice perfectly calm, "do you have any idea how many years you get for kidnapping and attempted aggravated assault?" He froze. Clearly, he hadn't expected that question. "That's nonsense." "It's not nonsense." I cut him off. "You drugged me, kidnapped me, held me prisoner for 3 days, and planned to forcibly remove my kidney. Every single one of those is a felony, with clear sentencing guidelines in the penal code." Damon's face started to go white, but he was still fighting. "I was trying to save a life. Lila's in end-stage renal failure. And you're the only one who can save her. Aurora, how can you be so cold?" I laughed. A soft, quiet laugh that filled the entire interrogation room. First, I held up one finger. Lila and I are not blood related. She's adopted. I'm the birth daughter. Our genetic similarity is no higher than two random strangers. The match was a coincidence, not an obligation. Damon opened his mouth, but no words came out. Second, I held up a second finger. You seem to have forgotten I'm in medical school. Third year at Arlington University School of Medicine. Top of my class. I've seen Lila's test results. Her glomerular filtration rate is low. Yes. But nowhere near end-stage failure. At those levels, she has at least 3 years of viable kidney function left. More than enough time to wait for a legal, deceased donor kidney. Third, I looked him dead in the eye. Why were you in such a hurry? Damon's breathing picked up. Fast and shallow. I don't know what you're talking about. You do. I leaned forward, folding my hands on the table. You were in such a rush to take my kidney, even willing to commit a felony to do it. Were you afraid if you waited too long, I'd figure out what was going on? Or were you afraid that if you waited, the lie about Lila's condition would fall apart? Damon shot to his feet. The handcuffs clattered loudly against the metal table. You're lying. Lila's medical records are from a leading specialist. What would a student like you know? He was shouting, loud and furious, but his voice was shaking. Detective Carter pressed the call button on the table. The door to the interrogation room opened almost immediately. A middle-aged man in a white lab coat was led in, his face ashen. It was Dr. Elias Clark, the man who was supposed to perform my surgery. When Damon saw him, his pupils constricted to pinpricks. Dr. Clark, Detective Carter said. Tell us what you told us earlier. Again, Dr. Clark didn't dare look at Damon. He stared at the floor, his voice barely above a whisper. Ms. Bennett's condition, it was never end stage. I took money from Mr. Cole to alter the test results, to exaggerate the severity of her illness. Damon froze, like a statue that had crumbled to dust in an instant. Anything else? Detective Carter pressed. Mr. Cole said we needed to do the surgery as soon as possible, because Ms. Hale would figure out what was going on soon and Ms. Bennett couldn't wait any longer. Couldn't wait for what? Dr. Clark was shaking so hard he could barely speak. Couldn't wait for Ms. Hale's kidney. Because the black market side of things. He didn't finish, but it was enough. Damon collapsed back into his chair, every last trace of color draining from his face. I stared at him. This man I'd once thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. The man had stood in front of me 3 days prior, and gently told me he'd marry me. Now he was a deflated balloon, slumping in the chair, without even the strength to lie anymore. The interrogation room door burst open suddenly. Several police officers rushed in, moving quickly to pin Damon to the chair. What are you doing? Get off me. He finally snapped out of it, struggling violently, but the handcuffs were already locked tight. Detective Carter stood up, his face completely blank as he read the formal charge. Damon Cole, you are under arrest on charges of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, attempted aggravated assault, bribing a medical professional, and falsifying medical records. You are now in official police custody. Damon was dragged to his feet and pulled toward the door. As he passed me, he stopped suddenly, twisting around to stare at me. His eyes were filled with rage, with bitterness, and with despair. Aurora. His voice was hoarse. Do you hate me this much? I stood up, walking over to him. We were so close I could see my reflection in his pupils. I don't hate you, I said. A flicker of hope crossed his face, but I kept going. Hate requires feeling. For you, I feel nothing at all. I never drank that water you spiked. The anesthetic vial is still in your car, with your fingerprints all over it. The chat logs, the bank transfers, the recorded calls with Dr. Clark. I backed all of it up. One for the police, one for my attorney, and the last one I'm saving it for the courtroom. To play for you. Nice and slow. Damon's lips trembled. He tried to speak, but only a strangled gurgle came out of his throat. The officers pulled him onward, out of the interrogation room. He stumbled, looking back one last time. That raw, unfiltered terror back in his eyes. Not terror of me, terror of what was coming. I stood there, watching as he was led down the hallway and out of sight. Vivian walked in, putting an arm around my shoulders. It's over. Not yet, I said. This is just the beginning. Detective Carter walked over, handing me a formal document. Arrest warrant. The DA will be filing formal charges next. Then we move to arraignment. As the victim, you'll need to be present throughout the process. I took the document, signed it without even reading it through. What about Lila? I asked. We've already sent officers to the hospital, he said. If she was involved in the planning, she'll be facing charges too. I nodded. When I walked out of the police station, the sky was already dark. Street lights were on. Cars streamed by. The city kept turning like nothing had happened. But I knew something had changed forever. Vivian drove me home. Not to the Hale family mansion. To my own studio apartment. Near campus. 400 square feet. South-facing. With a tiny balcony. I unlocked the door, flipped on the light, and warm yellow light flooded the room. Simple, clean, entirely mine. Vivian set my bag down. Are you sure you don't want to go back to the Hales? Your mom and dad. They're probably at the hospital with Lila right now. I cut her off. Or figuring out how to ask me to drop the charges. Would you ever drop them? Never. I said it like it was a fact. Like the sky was blue. Vivian looked at me and smiled. Aurora, you've changed. Have I? You used to always back down, always compromise. Now she paused. Now you finally know how to fight for yourself. I walked out to the balcony, pushing open the window. Night breeze blew in, carrying the faint hum of the city. I'm not fighting, I said. I'm just taking back what's already mine. My body. My dignity. My life. Vivian stood behind me, quiet for a long time. Then she said, Do you want me to stay with you tonight? No. I turned around, smiling at her. I want to be alone for a little bit. Okay. She walked to the door, then paused. Call me if you need anything. I already reached out to a lawyer. He's coming to meet you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you. The door closed. I was alone in the apartment. I walked into the bathroom, turned on the shower. Hot water poured down, washing away the exhaustion of the last 3 days. Washing away every trace of Damon's touch. The mirror fogged over with steam. I stared at the blurry reflection in it. My face was pale, but my eyes were bright, and unbroken. When I got out of the shower, I wrapped a towel around myself and opened the fridge. It was almost empty, just a few bottles of water and a carton of expired milk. I smiled, pulled out my phone, and ordered food delivery. Spicy Sichuan hot pot bowl, extra spicy. While I waited, I sat on the couch and turned on the TV. I flipped to a news channel, where the anchor was reading a financial report. Coal Group stock had plummeted 7 that day. I turned the TV off, picked up my phone, scrolled to the contact labeled Hale family. My finger hovered over the call button for a long time. Finally, I closed the Contacts app and opened a legal resource website. I started searching. Sentencing guidelines for attempted aggravated assault. Statute of limitations for kidnapping. The process for filing a victim's civil suit alongside criminal charges. Line by line. Statute by statute. I read every word carefully. The doorbell rang. My food was here. I opened the door, took the bag, and the rich, spicy aroma hit me immediately. I sat down at the dining table, lifted the lid, and steam billowed up. I picked up my chopsticks, took a bite of lotus root. It was so spicy it made my eyes water, but I kept eating, bite after bite, until the bowl was clean. When I was done, I threw the container away, tied the trash bag tight. Then I sat down at my desk, turned on my laptop, and created a new folder. Named it Lawsuit Documents. I started organizing all the digital evidence. The audio recordings, screenshots of chat logs, bank statements, copies of the medical records, every single piece. Sorted and filed neatly. The night got deeper outside. The city's lights went out one by one. Only the lamp on my desk stayed on, burning until dawn. When the first light of morning slipped through the gap in the curtains, I closed my laptop. I stood up, stretched my stiff shoulders, and walked out to the balcony. I pulled the curtains open. The sky was pale gray, the sunrise bleeding pink and orange across the horizon. A new day, and a new battle. I took a deep breath, turned back into the room, changed my clothes, brushed my hair, put on a light layer of makeup. The woman in the mirror had clear eyes, a calm expression. She was ready for anything. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Lawyer will be at the cafe in 30 minutes. I replied, see you there. I grabbed my bag, slipped on my shoes, and opened the door. The hallway was empty. The elevator went down, the numbers ticking. First floor. The doors opened. I walked out, into the morning sun, my steps steady and sure. Damon Cole, Layla Bennett, the Hale family, and everyone else who thought I'd stay silent forever. You were wrong. Silence was never who I was. Fighting back was. The Hale family mansion sat halfway up the hillside. White marble walls, black wrought iron gates. 2 meticulously trimmed podocarpus trees flanking the entrance. Once, I'd thought the house was grand and impressive. Now, it looked like nothing more than a fancy tomb. The taxi pulled up to the gate. I paid the driver, got out, and stood in front of the iron gates with my suitcase. It wasn't big, just held the things that mattered. My ID, my laptop, a few books, and the clothes I'd bought with my own money over the years. I hadn't taken a single thing that belonged to the Hales. Marty, the groundskeeper, saw me and froze, quickly hitting the button to open the gate. Ms. Aurora, you're home. I'm here to get the last of my things, I said, my voice calm. I won't be coming back. Marty opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but closed it again. I pulled my suitcase inside. Down the cobblestone path lined with rose bushes, Lila's favorite variety. The front door was ajar. I pushed it open. The crystal chandelier was on, the light blinding. Mr. and Mrs. Hale sat on the European-style sofa. Lila curled up against Mrs. Hale, her eyes red and swollen, crying like she was heartbroken. When they saw me walk in, all 3 of them looked up at the same time. The air went thick and still. Aurora, Mrs. Hale spoke first, her voice sharp with blame. Where have you been? Lila has been worried sick about you. I let go of the suitcase handle. It stood by the door, like a period at the end of a sentence. Worried about what? I asked. Worried I didn't die on the operating table. Mrs. Hale's face went white. Lila let out a sob. Speaking up. Sister, I'm so sorry. I really had no idea Damon would do something like that. I was just so scared. She said it, standing up from the sofa, stumbling unsteadily toward me. Then she dropped to her knees right in front of me with a loud thud. Sister, please forgive me. She tilted her face up, tears streaming down her cheeks. I'm dying. You're the only one who can save me. Mrs. Hale stood up immediately. Layla, what are you doing? Get up. The floor is cold. Lila refused to stand, reaching out to grab the hem of my jeans. Sister, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please save me. I don't want to die. I looked down at her. I'd stared at this face for 6 years. Innocent, soft, always looking like she needed protecting. Once, I would have softened. Now, it just made me sick to my stomach. I pulled my leg back, stepping away from her. Layla, I said, how serious is your kidney disease? Exactly. She froze, tears falling faster. End stage. The doctors say I have a month at most. Which doctor? I asked. Dr. Elias Clark. Lila's face changed color. Mr. Hale finally spoke. His voice tired. Aurora. What's done is done. What's the point of going over this again? Lila's your sister. Can't you forgive her just this once? She had no idea what Damon was doing. No idea. I laughed. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, opened a voice recording, and hit play. Lila's voice flowed out of the speaker. Clear, sweet, sharp with calculation. Damon, have you got my sister under control yet? Relax. She's starved for affection. Throw her a few crumbs, and she'll do whatever I say. But what if she says no? Then we'll make her say yes. I already have the drug ready. I'll strap her to the table if I have to. But what if something goes wrong? What could go wrong? It's just a kidney. It's not like she'll die. When she wakes up, I'll tell her she agreed to the surgery to save my fiancé. How noble is that? The recording ended. The living room was dead silent. Lila was still on her knees, her face as white as a sheet. Mrs. Hale stared at her, then at me, her lips trembling. This is a recording of Lila and Damon talking in the garden gazebo. 2 weeks ago. I put my phone away. I happened to walk by. Happened to record it. Happened. Lila suddenly screamed. You planned this all along. You've been setting us up this whole time. I stared at her, my expression completely calm. 6 years ago, the day I moved in, you put an allergen in my skincare products. I broke out in hives all over my face, and wouldn't leave my room for a month. 5 years ago, you stole my design portfolio, entered it into a national art competition under your own name, and won first place. 4 years ago, you forged evidence that I'd cheated on an exam, and almost got me expelled from school. 3 years ago, you spiked my drink at a party, trying to humiliate me in front of the whole school. Luckily, I didn't drink it. 2 years ago, you paid people to spread rumors that I was promiscuous, and the whole school whispered about me behind my back. I listed every single incident, slow and steady. No heat in my voice. Mr. and Mrs. Hale's faces got darker and darker with every word. Lila's breathing got faster and faster, shallow and panicked. Want me to keep going? I asked. Or do you think all of these were just accidents? Aurora, Mrs. Hale's voice was shaking. Is this true? Mom. Lila grabbed Mrs. Hale's hand. Frantic. Don't listen to her. She's just jealous. She's always been jealous that you and Dad love me more. Jealous. I laughed out loud. Layla. You're wrong. I was never jealous of you. I just felt sorry for you. A person who has to lie, steal, and manipulate to hold on to their place in the world. There's nothing to be jealous of there. Lila looked like she'd been slapped, her entire face twisting with rage. Mr. Hale stood up. He walked over to me, his expression complicated, shocked, guilty, and exhausted. Aurora, he said. I'm sorry. Those 3 words. I'd waited 6 years to hear them, now that I had. They just tasted like ash. Save it. I shook my head. These 6 years have taught me one thing: some family bonds can't be forced. I turned around, grabbed the handle of my suitcase. I came here today to get my things, and to tell you this. From today onward, my only connection to the Hale family is legal. I'll be moving my legal residency documentation as soon as possible. As for the inheritance, what's legally mine, I won't give up. What isn't, I won't take a single cent of. Mrs. Hale rushed over, grabbing my hand. Aurora. Don't do this. This is your home. I gently pulled my hand away. Home. I looked around the opulent living room. This was never my home. This was always your home. With Lila, I was just a guest. The wheels of my suitcase rolled across the polished marble floor, making a soft, steady sound. I walked to the door, then paused, looking back. Oh, right, I said. About Lila's illness. I suggest you find a new hospital, a new doctor, and run a full panel of tests again. You might be surprised by what you find. With that, I pulled open the door and walked out. The early autumn wind blew over me, carrying the scent of pine and grass from the hills. I took a deep breath, pulled my suitcase behind me, and walked down the steps without looking back. The iron gate closed slowly behind me, with a heavy, final thud. Like closing the cover on a book I never wanted to read again. I walked to the side of the road, pulled out my phone, and called a rideshare. While I waited, I looked up at the mansion. In the sunlight, it was still perfect. Still grand, but it meant nothing to me anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. How did it go? All good. I replied. All good. Got my things. Said what I needed to say. What did they do? Exactly what you'd expect. The car pulled up. A white sedan. The driver got out. Helped me put my suitcase in the trunk. I slid into the back seat. Where to? The driver asked. I thought for a second. Metropolitan General Hospital. Please. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror. Visiting someone? No. I said. I'm going to watch a show. The car pulled away, driving down the hillside. I leaned back against the seat, closing my eyes. I replayed every moment of the living room scene in my head. Lila on her knees crying. Mrs. Hale panicking. Mr. Hale apologizing. No heartache. No sadness. Just a quiet, settled calm. Like having a rotten tooth pulled. It had hurt. It had ached. But once it was gone, you could finally eat again. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Detective Carter. Ms. Hale. Lila's at the hospital. Our officers are there now. Getting ready to bring her in for questioning. Is she cooperating? Not exactly. Crying. Screaming. Saying you're framing her. I smiled. Do you need me to come down? Not right now. But if you have any more evidence. I do. I said. I'll send it to you in a minute. I hung up. Opened the encrypted album at the very bottom of my phone gallery, and entered the password. Inside was every piece of evidence ID collected over 6 years. Chat logs of Lila paying people to bully me at school. Scanned copies of the forged documents. Bank transfers from unknown accounts into her bank. More recorded conversations between her and Damon. ID never shown them to anyone before. Because ID still held out hope. Hope that one day, my parents would see the truth. Hope that one day, this family would actually accept me. Now I knew. Hope was called hope for a reason. It never came true. I selected all the files, encrypted them, and sent them to Detective Carter's official work email. The subject line read, Supplementary evidence. Lila Bennett on charges of defamation, fraud, solicitation of assault, and more. Sent. The car pulled up to the entrance of Metropolitan General Hospital. I paid the driver, got out, and left my suitcase in the car. Asking him to wait for me, I walked into the lobby, the familiar smell of antiseptic hitting me. The elevator stopped at the 8th floor. Nephrology. The hallway was quiet. I walked to the door of room 808. It was ajar. Inside, I could hear Lila screaming, I'm not going. I'm sick. You can't do this to me. And Mrs. Hale's voice. Frantic. Officers. My daughter is very sick. You can't take her away like this. I pushed the door open. Inside the room, 2 female officers stood by the bed. Lila was curled up in Mrs. Hale's arms. Mr. Hale standing off to the side. His face dark with anger. When they saw me, everyone froze. Lila's gaze turned into a knife, sharp and poisoned. Aurora Hale, how dare you show up here? I came to watch, I said. My voice calm, and to tell Detective Carter that the supplementary evidence has been sent to his email. Lila's entire body shook. What evidence? What are you forging now? Whether it's forged or not, the police will verify. I looked her dead in the eye. Layla. 6 years is a long time. The show's over. One of the female officers stepped forward. Ms. Layla Bennett, please come with us. This is just a routine questioning to assist with the investigation. If you're innocent, You'll be back in no time. I'm not going. Layla screamed. Mom, Dad. Help me. Mr. Hale finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Layla, if you haven't done anything wrong, go with the officers and tell them the truth. Lila stared at him, completely disbelieving. Dad, even you don't believe me. Mr. Hale closed his eyes and said nothing. Mrs. Hale cried, holding Lila tight. Layla, don't be scared. Mommy will come with you. Mrs. Hale. The officer cut her off. At this time, only Ms. Bennett is required to come with us. Lila was pulled out of Mrs. Hale's arms. She didn't struggle anymore, just stared at me. Her gaze so full of venom it almost dripped onto the floor. Aurora Hale. She said it slow, deliberate, every word a curse. I won't let you get away with this. I walked over to her, my voice low enough for only her to hear. You should have said that 6 years ago. Too bad. You don't have a chance anymore. The officers led Lila out of the room. Mrs. Hale ran after them, screaming her daughter's name. Mr. Hale stood where he was, looking at me, his expression complicated. Aurora, he said, did it have to be this way? Mr. Hale, I replied, calm and steady. She chose this path. All I did was hand her choices over to the law. With that, I turned and walked out of the room. Mrs. Hale's cries faded behind me down the hallway. The elevator doors closed, shutting out all the noise. I got back in the car and said to the driver, back to where you picked me up. Please. The car pulled away from the hospital. I leaned against the window, watching the city pass by. My phone buzzed. Vivian was calling. Aurora, the lawyer is confirmed for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Same place as always. Got it. Also, the Cole family is reaching out to people, trying to get you to settle out of court. Tell them, I said. I'll see them in court. I hung up, closing my eyes. My suitcase bounced gently in the trunk. It held everything I owned. Not much, but it was enough. Enough to start a new life. A life without the Hales. Without Lila. Without Damon Cole. A life that was entirely, completely mine. The car pulled up to my apartment building. I paid the driver, grabbed my suitcase, and walked upstairs. I unlocked the door, flipped on the light. 400 square feet. Quiet. Warm. Safe. I set the suitcase against the wall, walked into the kitchen, and boiled a kettle of water. It bubbled and whistled when it boiled. I made a cup of tea, carried it to my desk, and turned on my laptop. I logged into the university's student portal. The early admission offer for the graduate program was there, waiting for me. I clicked accept. Then I opened my email and wrote to my advisor. Professor, I have a preliminary outline for my research project on early diagnosis of renal disease. Would we be able to discuss it in detail next week? I hit send. The tea steamed gently in front of me. I picked up the cup, took a sip. It was hot, but it warmed me all the way down. 3 days later, the Cole family struck back. At 7 a.m. Vivian's call woke me up. Aurora, check X Twitter trending. Now. I rubbed my eyes, sat up, and opened my phone. Number 3 on the trending list. Hale family heiress refuses to save dying sister. I clicked on it. It was a long article. The title sensational. Old money family drama. The long-lost heiress who refused to save her dying adopted sister. The article was written to sound unbiased, but every line was carefully crafted to manipulate. It said Lila was gravely ill, in desperate need of a kidney transplant. It said her only matching sister, had not only refused to donate, but had called the police and had her well-meaning fiancé arrested. It said I'd been coveting the Hale family fortune for years, and was using this incident to seize control of the entire estate. Beneath the article, paid trolls had flooded the comments. How can you be so cold? That's your sister. Heard this girl grew up in the middle of nowhere. No manners at all. Damon Cole is so innocent. What's wrong with trying to save the woman he loves? I scrolled through the comments. My face completely blank. Vivian was seething on the other end of the line. It's definitely the Cole family paying for this. They're trying to use public pressure to force you to drop the charges. I know. I said. I expected this. What are you going to do? Do you want me to reach out to my media contacts to clear your name? No. I got out of bed, walked to my desk, and turned on my laptop. I'll handle it myself. I hung up and logged into a newly created social media account. My profile picture was a photo of me in the lab at med school. In a white coat, hair pulled back in a ponytail, smiling at the camera. My bio read, Aurora Hale, third-year medical student, Arlington University School of Medicine. Then I started writing. The title was simple, My 6 Years, From Heiress to Spare Part. No sensationalism. No playing the victim. Just facts. Part 1. The blood type match report. And screenshots of Lila's medical records. I circled the key values in red, with a medical explanation beside them. Glomerular filtration rate of 45 mmHg is stage 3 chronic kidney disease. Nowhere near end-stage renal failure. Standard protocol is to wait for a legal deceased donor kidney, not emergency live donation. Part 2. A full transcript of the recorded conversation between Damon and I in the clinic. I highlighted the 3 most critical lines in bold red. All you have to do is give Lila your kidney. Once the surgery's over, I'll marry you. I promise. When's the doctor getting here? Already on the way. 10 more minutes. The surgery will be quick, and I'll take care of you the whole time after. Part 3. Evidence of Lila's years of bullying and manipulation. The lab report confirming the allergen in my skincare products. The original design files side by side with Lila's award-winning entry. The school's official letter clearing me of cheating allegations. Security camera footage from the bar where she spiked my drink, faces blurred. Chat logs of the rumors she spread. And the apology letter from the classmate who'd spread them. Every image, every line, had a date. A source. Part 4. Bank records of the bribe paid to Dr. Clark. Redacted to protect sensitive information, but clear enough to show a 50,000 transfer from Damon Cole's account to Dr. Clark's. With the memo surgery arrangement fee. At the end, I wrote a single paragraph. No emotion, just questions. If this was truly about saving a life, why not go through the legal, ethical organ donation process? If the condition was truly life-threatening, why did the attending doctor take a bribe to exaggerate the severity of the illness? If she was truly innocent, why is there a recording of Lila Bennett discussing the forced surgery with Damon Cole weeks in advance? If this was truly about sisterly love, why were there so many coincidences over the last 6 years? All of the above evidence has been submitted to the police. The law will decide. As for my early admission to the graduate program, my full transcript and professor's letter of recommendation are attached. If you still have doubts, you are welcome to visit Arlington University School of Medicine, where I will take a full professional exam in front of you. I hit post. Then I shared the Cole family's hit piece, with the caption, Defamation and slander. Evidence has been collected. A cease and desist letter will be sent shortly. When I was done, I closed my laptop and went to brush my teeth. While I was in the bathroom, my phone started blowing up. Likes, retweets, comments. By the time I walked out of the bathroom, the thread had been retweeted over 10,000 times and was number 1 on the trending list. Public opinion flipped completely. Holy shit. This is real life gone, girl. That Lila girl is pure evil. 6 years. How could she do that? Damon Cole is a monster, trading marriage for a kidney. Why didn't he give up his own? Aurora Hale has been through hell, treated like an organ bank and then doxed. Am I the only one who noticed she has a perfect GPA? This woman is a genius. She published a peer-reviewed paper in med school. I'm on my knees. I scrolled through the comments. My expression unchanged. I liked a few comments asking questions about nephrology. My phone rang. It was Mr. Hale. I hesitated for 2 seconds, then answered. Aurora. His voice was exhausted. Did you post that article? I did. You did it have to be this public. This messy. Mr. Hale. I said. The mess is the truth. My hand didn't make the mess. I just lifted the lid off it. There was silence on the other end of the line. After a long time, he said. The Cole family reached out to me. They're offering a settlement. If you drop the charges. Did you accept? No. His voice was even more tired. But Aurora, the Cole family has a lot of power. You're just one woman. I appreciate the concern. I cut him off. But I have a lawyer. The police. And the law on my side. And am not afraid. I hung up. And boiled some water to make noodles. Halfway through cooking, Vivian called again. Turn on the live stream. Lila's gone live. I clicked the link. Lila was sitting in a hospital bed, wearing a hospital gown. Her face pale, her eyes red and swollen. She was crying into the camera, her voice breaking. I don't know why my sister is doing this to me. I'm just sick. I just want to live. Damon was just trying to help me. He made a mistake, but my sister is fine. Why can't she forgive him? I know my sister doesn't like me, because I took her place. I'll leave. I'll give everything back to her, if it makes her happy. The comments were scrolling fast. At first, a few people felt bad for her. This is so sad, she's so sick and still getting attacked online. Rich family drama is so complicated. But very quickly, people started noticing something was off. Wait a minute. End-stage renal failure and she's doing a live stream. She looks way too healthy. She's speaking with so much energy. My grandma was on dialysis. She could barely talk. Same. I'm a nephrology nurse. End-stage patients do not look like this. Then someone posted photos. Photos of Lila at a nightclub. A month prior, she was wearing a sequined slip dress, holding a cocktail, smiling brightly, the music blaring in the background. The photo was retweeted thousands of times, with the caption, dying. She was partying until 3 a.m. at a nightclub a month ago. The comments on Lila's live stream exploded. Caught. Oscar-worthy performance. Ms. Bennett. WHYD you stop crying. Cat got your tongue. Lila stared at the comments, her face getting whiter and whiter. She tried to explain, but her words came out jumbled and panicked. That was before, when I was still feeling okay a month ago. I could still go out sometimes. No. Wait. Listen to me. No one was listening. The comments flooded the stream. And she was forced to end the live broadcast abruptly. I closed the tab and kept eating my noodles. My phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I answered. Ms. Aurora Hale. This is Attorney Wang, representing the Cole Group. Speak. Regarding Mr. Damon Cole's case. We are hoping to reach a private settlement with you. The Cole family is willing to pay $500,000 in compensation if you agree to drop the charges. $500,000. I laughed. Is Damon Cole's life only worth $500,000 to you? Ms. Hale, please be reasonable. A trial will be long and draining. And the outcome is not guaranteed. The Cole family has the best legal team in the state. So do I said. And I don't need the money. Then what do you want? I want Damon Cole and Lila Bennett to pay for what they did. Ms. Hale. Leave some room for negotiation. Attorney Wang. I cut him off. If it was your daughter strapped to that operating table, kidnapped, drugged, about to have her kidney cut out, would you tell her to leave some room for negotiation? There was silence on the other end of the line. I kept going. Tell the Cole family I'll see them in court. I hung up and blocked the number. I finished my noodles, washed the bowl, and dried my hands. My phone screen lit up with a new email from Detective Carter. Ms. Hale. There's a major breakthrough in the case. Dr. Clark has given up critical information in exchange for a plea deal. Can you come down to the station? I replied. I'll be there in an hour. I changed my clothes and headed out. The sun was bright as I walked to the police station. I passed a coffee shop and stopped to buy an iced Americano. The barista, a young girl, looked up at me, and her eyes went wide. You're Aurora Hale, right? I froze for a second, then nodded. The girl grinned. Excited. I read your thread. You're so brave. Keep fighting. She handed me the coffee and whispered, this one's on the house. Make sure those bad people get what they deserve. I took the coffee and smiled. Thank you. I walked out of the coffee shop, holding the warm cup in my hands. For a second, I thought that maybe the city wasn't as cold as I'd thought. There were strangers willing to buy you a free coffee, and a legal system willing to give you justice. When I got to the station, Detective Carter was waiting for me in his office. His expression was grave. Ms. Hale, Dr. Clark gave up a critical piece of information to reduce his sentence. What is it? He handed me a file folder. Lila Bennett's kidney disease is fake. I opened the folder, flipped through the pages. Inside were Lila's real medical reports. Retest results from 3 different hospitals. Every single number showed that her kidney function was completely normal. The so-called renal failure had been entirely fabricated. I looked up at Detective Carter. So she was never sick at all? No. He nodded. Damon Cole knew about it and helped her. They falsified the medical records, exaggerated her condition, all to steal the Hale family fortune. And he paused. And what? And your kidney. Detective Carter's voice went cold. According to Dr. Clark's statement, they planned for you to die in a surgical accident. That way, Lila would be the Hale family's only remaining daughter, inherit the entire estate, and marry Damon Cole. I sat in the chair and suddenly felt cold. I'd suspected it, of course, but hearing it out loud was different. If I hadn't been prepared, I said softly, I'd be dead right now, wouldn't I? Detective Carter said nothing, but his eyes said it all. I took a deep breath and stood up. Detective Carter, I want to see Damon Cole. Now. Right now. Right now. In the interrogation room, Damon looked even worse than he had 3 days prior. He had stubble on his jaw, dark circles under his eyes, but the arrogance was still there. When he saw me, he let out a cold laugh. Here to gloat. I sat down on the other side of the glass. I just have one question for you. What? Why did you want me dead? Damon froze for a second, then burst out laughing. It was a harsh, grating sound, like a rusted gate being forced open. Because you were in the way, he said. Lila deserved everything the Hales had. And you were nothing but extra. Extra. One word. That summed up 6 years of my life. I nodded. I see. Then I stood up and turned to leave. Damon called after me suddenly. Aurora Hale, you win. Are you happy now? I stopped and turned back to look at him. Damon Cole, you're wrong. This isn't about winning. This is about human life. I walked out of the interrogation room. Detective Carter was waiting for me outside. Do you need to sit down for a minute? No, I said. I want to go home. Okay, I'll drive you. Sitting in the police car, I watched the city pass by outside the window. I thought about Damon's last words and pulled out my phone, texting Vivian, find me the best plaintiff's attorney in the state. I'm taking back everything that's mine. Sent. The car pulled up to my apartment building. I got out. Thanked Detective Carter. He looked at me like he wanted to say something, but in the end, just said, take care of yourself. I nodded and walked upstairs. When I got into my apartment, I closed the door and slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. My phone was still buzzing. Media interview requests, messages from classmates, supportive DMs from strangers. I ignored them all. Finally, I opened my contacts, found Mr. Hale's number, and stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the app and opened the legal resource website again. I searched Inheritance rights. Difference in inheritance share between adopted and birth children. Forfeiture of inheritance rights for intentional harm to an heir. Line by line. I read every word carefully. The sky got dark outside. I stood up and turned on the light. Warm yellow light flooded the room. I walked to my desk, opened my notebook, and started making a list. Everything I needed to take back. Every debt that needed to be paid. Every step of the path ahead. I filled the page, line after line. When I wrote the last line, I closed the notebook. I picked up the coffee cup from my desk. It was cold. I walked into the kitchen, poured it out, and made a fresh cup. When the coffee went cold again, my phone rang. It was Vivian. I found the attorney. Liam Nelson. Specializes in criminal and civil litigation. Has an insane win rate. When can we meet him? Tomorrow at 10 a.m. At his firm. Got it. I hung up and poured the cold coffee down the drain. The water ran, washing away the dark brown stains on the mug. I stared at them for a second, then opened the fridge. It was almost empty. Just a few bottles of water and a carton of eggs. I pulled out 2 eggs, cracked them into a bowl, and whisked them. I turned on the stove, poured in oil, and slid the eggs into the pan. They sizzled, the rich smell of cooked egg filling the kitchen. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Mrs. Hale. I stared at the name flashing on the screen for a long time. Finally, I answered. Aurora, her voice was thick with tears. They took Lila away. The police arrested her. I know. They said Lila was never sick. That she faked it. That can't be true. Lila was always so sweet. Mrs. Hale. I cut her off. Being sweet doesn't excuse committing a felony. There was a quiet, broken sob on the other end of the line. Aurora. Mommy is so sorry these 6 years. I had no idea. You know now, I said. My voice completely calm. So what now? Now she choked on her words. Now Mommy wants to make it up to you. Come home, please. I'll make your favorite sweet and sour ribs. I almost laughed. 6 years ago, when I first moved in, Shed said the exact same thing. And back then, most of that plate of sweet and sour ribs had gone into Lila's bowl. Because Lila's health is delicate. She needs the nutrition. No, thank you, I said. I don't like sweet and sour ribs anymore. Then what do you like? I'll make anything you want. I want peace and quiet. There was silence on the other end of the line. Just quiet. Shaky breathing. Mrs. Hale. I kept going. If you really want to make this up to me, you'll cooperate fully with the police investigation. Tell them everything you know. Every expense. Every bank transfer. Every person Lila was in contact with over these years. That's the only way you can make this right. I hung up. The eggs were a little overcooked. The edges burnt. I turned off the stove, scooped them onto a plate, and ate them with white rice, bite after bite. Until the plate was clean. It was a little salty, but I ate every last bite. While I was washing the dishes, my phone screen lit up again. A text from Detective Carter. Ms. Hale. We found Lila Bennett's biological parents. They're willing to testify. Confirm that Lila knew about her true parentage and was aware of the falsified medical records. I dried my hands and replied, Where are they now? At the station. Do you want to come meet them? Yes. I changed my clothes and headed out. The night wind was a little cold, so I pulled my jacket tighter around me. The police station was brightly lit. The night shift officers nodding at me as I walked in. Carter's in conference room 2. I pushed the door open. 3 people were sitting inside. Detective Carter and a middle-aged couple. They were dressed in plain, worn clothes. Their faces sallow. Their eyes darting away from mine. Their hands rough. Dirt under their fingernails. When they saw me walk in, they both looked up at the same time. A complicated flash in their eyes. This is Ms. Aurora Hale. Detective Carter introduced us. The woman stood up immediately, her lips trembling. Ms. Hale, we are so sorry for what we did to you. The man stood up too. His head bowed. We're terrible people, we had no right. I pulled out a chair and sat down. Sit. They sat back down, nervous and fidgeting. Detective Carter turned on the recorder. You told us earlier that Lila knew about her true parentage. The woman nodded, her voice shaking. Lila, she found out when she was 15. She found the letters we sent. Found out we were her real parents. And then she came to see us. The man picked up the story, his voice dry. She said the Hales were rich, and she could keep being their daughter. But she needed us to play along. Play along how? Just show up at the Hale house sometimes. Make a scene. Say we wanted our daughter back. That we wanted compensation. The woman said. Then Lila would play the mediator. And get the Hales to pay us off to leave. Detective Carter flipped through the case notes. According to the bank records, over the last 7 years, the Hale family sent you 12 payments, totaling $230,000. Yais. The man's voice got even lower. Lila said it was what the Hales owed us for taking our daughter away. I laughed. The sound was sharp in the quiet conference room. All three of them looked at me. Took her away. I stared at them. If I remember correctly, you were the ones who left Lila at the orphanage gate, weren't you? Because you couldn't afford to feed her. Because you wanted a boy. The woman's face went sheet white. The man's head bowed even lower. Keep going. Detective Carter tapped the table. Then Lila said she had kidney disease. And that her sister was a match. The woman kept going. She told us to pretend we didn't know anything. To play along with her story. She said once the surgery was done, she'd inherit all the Hale family's money. And she'd take care of us for the rest of our lives. Surgery? I asked. What surgery? The kidney removal. The woman wouldn't meet my eyes. Lila said her sister was just extra anyway. It's not like she'd die from missing a kidney. But she never said anything about killing her. The man suddenly looked up. Frantic. We had no idea they were planning to kill her. We swear we didn't know. The conference room went quiet. Only the faint hum of the recorder. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the couple. Their faces were filled with fear and regret. But I knew it wasn't for me. It was for the legal consequences they were about to face. Detective Carter, I said. Are they considered accomplices? Detective Carter closed the notebook. They knew about the crime, helped facilitate it, and accepted the proceeds. Yes, they're accomplices. The couple collapsed back into their chairs at the same time. The woman started crying. We're so sorry, we know we were wrong. Well, give all the money back, please. Just let us go. The man joined in, begging. Well, testify. Well, say everything we know about Lila. Please. Just give us a lighter sentence. I looked at them, and suddenly felt exhausted. Detective Carter, I'm going to head home. Okay. I'll walk you out. We walked out of the conference room, closed the door. And the cries were still audible through the wood. The hallway was quiet. Detective Carter walked me to the front door. Ms. Hale, you're meeting with the attorney tomorrow. Do you want me to come with you? No, thank you. I said. I can handle it. He nodded, hesitated for a second, then spoke. There's something else about the Hale family. What is it? Mr. and Mrs. Hale came to see me today, Detective Carter said. They said they're willing to cooperate fully, provide all the evidence. But they hope you'll give Lila a chance. I stopped walking and looked at him. What kind of chance? They want Lila to plead guilty, show remorse, get a lighter sentence. He said it carefully. After all, they raised her for 22 years. I smiled. The night wind blew cold on my face. Detective Carter, if it was your daughter strapped to that operating table, would you give the people who did it a chance? Detective Carter was silent. I kept going. I want. Not because I hate her. Because of the law. If the law says she can get a lighter sentence, I won't argue. If the law says she needs to serve the maximum, I won't beg for mercy. That's my position. Detective Carter looked at me, his expression complicated. Finally, he nodded. I understand. When I got home, it was already late at night. I turned on my laptop and logged into my email. There were a few new messages. One from the university registrar, confirming my early admission to the graduate program. One from my advisor, asking to meet next week to discuss my research project. And one from an unknown address. The subject line read, "Evidence against the Cole family." I opened it. Inside was a compressed file, with a note, "Cole Group offshore money laundering project files. Might be useful to you." The sender was anonymous. I downloaded the file, unzipped it, and found pages and pages of documents, financial statements, wire transfer records, project contracts, and a few blurry photos. In the photos, Mr. Cole was laughing with several foreign men in a private club. In the background, stacks of cash, jewelry, and paintings. I closed the file and leaned back in my chair. My heart was beating a little fast. If these documents were real, they were enough to take down the entire Cole Group. But the source was unknown, and they needed to be verified. I texted Vivian, "Help me trace an anonymous email address. Also, find a trusted forensic accountant and attorney to go through a set of financial documents." Vivian replied almost immediately, "Got it. But Aurora, are you sure you want to get involved with the Cole family like this? They have a lot of power. The more power they have, the more harm they've done." I typed back, "And this isn't getting involved. This is self-defense." Sent. I shut down my laptop and walked into the bathroom. I turned on the shower and let the hot water wash away the exhaustion and the chill of the day. When I got out, I stood in front of the mirror, wrapped in a towel. The woman in the mirror had bright eyes, a pale face, but her back was straight. I dried my hair, put on my pajamas, and climbed into bed. I turned off the lights. In the dark, my phone screen lit up again. A text from Mr. Hale. "Aurora, I know you've been hurt. Come home tomorrow. We need to talk about the estate. What's yours? I won't hold back." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I replied, "My attorney will be in touch with you." Sent. I turned off the phone, closed my eyes. Images flashed through my head. The living room of the Hale mansion. 6 years ago. Lila taking my hand. My birthday party 3 years ago. Damon giving me a cheap necklace. The family medical appointment a month prior. Lila curled up against Mrs. Hale, pouting. The hospital room 3 days ago. Damon telling me he'd marry me if I gave up my kidney. And today, the barista saying keep fighting. Detective Carter saying take care of yourself. The couple in the conference room saying we're sorry. It was like a long movie. Finally reaching the end credits. And I was finally standing up from my seat, walking out of the theater. The streetlight outside cast a faint line of light through the gap in the curtains. It was weak, but it was enough to light up the small patch of darkness in front of me. It was enough. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. I didn't dream at all that night. The next morning, my alarm woke me up at 7:30. The sun was bright through the window. I got up, brushed my teeth, made breakfast, fried eggs, toast, warm milk. When I was done eating, I changed my clothes. A crisp white button-down, black tailored trousers, low heels, my hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. The woman in the mirror was sharp, polished, her eyes steady and sure. At 8:30, I headed out. First, I stopped at the print shop, printed 3 copies of the Cole family financial documents, and bound them. Then I went to the bank and locked 1 copy in a safe deposit box. At 9:30, I arrived at the law firm. Vivian was waiting for me downstairs. "Attorney Nelson is upstairs. He's already gone through all your case files. He says the evidence is rock solid. Your odds are excellent." Good. We walked upstairs together. Attorney Nelson's office was on the top floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over half the city. He was in his 50s, with streaks of gray in his hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and sharp, intelligent eyes. Ms. Hale, please have a seat. I sat down. Vivian sitting beside me. Attorney Nelson flipped open the file folder in front of him. I've reviewed all your materials and spoken with Detective Carter. The evidence chain is complete. The kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and attempted aggravated assault charges against Damon Cole are essentially guaranteed to result in a conviction. What about Lila Bennett? I asked. Solicitation of a felony, fraud, falsifying medical documents, and extortion. He pushed his glasses up his nose. With the testimony from her biological parents, she's looking at significant prison time. Also, regarding the Hale family estate, he paused. Are you certain you want to proceed with the partition action? I am, I said. I'm not fighting for more than I'm owed. I'm just asking for what the law says is mine. Understood. Attorney Nelson nodded. Under the state civil code, there is a legal distinction between the inheritance rights of adopted and birth children. Additionally, if an heir is found guilty of attempting to harm another heir, they forfeit all inheritance rights entirely. What's the process? We'll need to file a petition with the probate court to confirm your legal share of the estate, he said. It will be a lengthy process, and it will burn the bridge with your family completely. I smiled. Attorney Nelson, the bridge was already burned a long time ago. Attorney Nelson smiled back. Very well. I'll draft the petition first thing tomorrow. Also, I pulled out the printed financial documents and set them on the table. I need you to take a look at these. Attorney Nelson flipped through them, and his face changed as he read. This is evidence of the Cole Group's offshore money laundering operation, I said. The source is anonymous, but I believe it's credible. Attorney Nelson flipped through the pages quickly, his expression growing more and more serious. If this is real, this isn't just Damon Cole's problem. This is the entire Cole Group, the whole family. I know, I said. So I'm asking you, who do I hand these over to? Attorney Nelson was silent for a moment. Then he picked up the phone. Get me Captain Lucas with the Economic Crimes Division. Tell him I have critical information regarding a major ongoing investigation. He hung up and looked at me. Ms. Hale, I recommend you hand these over to the Economic Crimes Division through official channels. An anonymous tip is safer, but the investigation will move much slower if we do that. Okay, I nodded. Make the arrangements. Also, Attorney Nelson paused. Ms. Hale, you're braver than most clients I've ever represented. It's not bravery, I said. I don't have a choice. When your back is against the wall, the only way out is forward. Attorney Nelson looked at me, a flicker of respect in his eyes. Then we go forward, and we make sure every single person who deserves it ends up where they belong. The meeting ended at noon. Vivian walked downstairs with me, her arm linked through mine. Aurora, are you really sure you want to report the Cole family? What if they retaliate? I'm sure, I said. I'm scared. Of course, but I'm more scared of them hurting someone else the way they hurt me. Vivian squeezed my hand tight. I'm with you, all the way. Thank you. The formal petitions were filed 3 days later. 3 separate cases. In triplicate. One against Damon Cole, kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, attempted aggravated assault. One against Lila Bennett, solicitation of a felony, fraud, falsifying medical documents, extortion. One against the Hale family estate, petition for probate, to confirm legal inheritance share. When Attorney Nelson handed me the copies, he said 4 words. There's no turning back now. I took the documents, flipping through the pages of legal text. I never wanted to turn back anyway. Vivian was beside me, organizing the evidence list. Thick stacks of paper filling 3 file boxes. Aurora, do we need to bring all of these to court? Every single one, I said. Not a single page gets left behind. My phone buzzed. It was Mr. Hale. I answered. Put it on speakerphone. Aurora, I received the petition. Did it really have to come to this? Mr. Hale. This is the legal process, I said, my voice calm. You know better than anyone. In business, a contract is a contract. In family, the law is the law. There was silence on the other end of the line. After a long time, he sighed. The Cole family is making moves. They've hired the best defense team in the state, saying they'll make you drop the charges. Or else. Or else what? I asked. Ruin my reputation. Make me disappear. Aurora. Mr. Hale raised his voice. I'm not threatening you. I'm worried about you. I appreciate the concern, I said, but I don't need it. I'm going to make them pay for what they did. With the law, not with tears. I hung up. Vivian looked at me. Worried. Do you think Mr. Hale will side against us? No. I cut her off. He loves Lila, but he loves the Hale group more. Now that Lila's a liability, Hale cut her loose. Like cutting out a diseased organ. The words hung in the air. I stood up and walked to the window. The law firm was on the 23rd floor, overlooking the busy streets of the city. In the distance, the spire of the county courthouse glinted in the sun, like a sword of justice hanging in the air. Trial starts tomorrow, Vivian asked. Yeah, I said. 9 a.m. Are you nervous? No. I turned to look at her. I've been waiting for this day for 6 years. The next morning, I woke up early. I put on the black suit. My hair pulled back perfectly. Vivian drove me to the courthouse. Dozens of reporters were gathered at the entrance, cameras flashing, shouting questions as I got out of the car. Ms. Hale, are you confident in the outcome of today's trial? Ms. Hale, will you be forgiving Lila Bennett? Ms. Hale, is it true the Cole family has offered a multi-million-dollar settlement? Will you accept? I didn't answer any of them. Walking quickly through the doors with Vivian and Attorney Nelson beside me, we went through security, checked in, and walked into the courtroom. The gallery was packed. Mr. and Mrs. Hale sat in the front row, their faces pale. The Cole family's defense team sat on the opposite side, 5 men in matching black suits, their expressions arrogant. Lila was led in by bailiffs, wearing a prison jumpsuit, handcuffs on her wrists. When she saw me, her gaze turned into a poisoned dagger. Damon was led in right after her, also in a prison jumpsuit, still holding his back straight, trying to cling to the last of his dignity. The judge banged his gavel. All rise. The county court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Albright presiding. The trial was longer than I expected, but it also went smoother than I expected. Attorney Nelson stood up and began his opening statement. No sensationalism, no emotional appeals. He just laid out the evidence, one piece at a time. The crime scene report from the underground clinic, the search warrant records, Dr. Clark's sworn testimony, the statement from Lila's biological parents, bank records, call logs, chat screenshots, and that crystal clear recording. All you have to do is give Lila your kidney. Once the surgery's over, I'll marry you. I promise. When the recording played through the courtroom speakers, there was an uproar in the gallery. Damon's face completely crumpled. Lila sat with her head bowed, her shoulders shaking. The Cole family's defense team tried to object, saying the recording was edited. The evidence was fabricated. But Attorney Nelson was ready. He called in a forensic audio expert, who testified under oath that the recording was unaltered and authentic. He called in a nephrologist, who explained the reality of stage 3 CKD. He called in a bank representative, who confirmed the authenticity of the transfer records. Every point was backed up, airtight. When it was time for cross-examination, the lead defense attorney stood up and walked over to the witness stand where I sat. Ms. Hale, you say you were coerced, but did you ever stop to think that Lila is your sister? That it was your moral duty to save her? The law does not require a sister to donate an organ to her sibling, nor does it require a sibling to donate to a sister, I said, my voice calm and steady, especially not when we are not blood related. But you lived together for 6 years. Did you feel no affection for her at all? Affection does not supersede the law, I said. If it did, every crime could be excused with I was doing it for the person I love. The attorney was caught off guard. He switched tactics. Ms. Hale, you collected this evidence so carefully, so methodically. Isn't it true that you planned this all along? That you used this incident to seize control of the Hale family estate? There was another murmur in the gallery. I looked him dead in the eye. Counselor, if your client was planning to cut out your kidney and kill you, would you forgive him warmly? Or would you collect evidence and send him to prison? The attorney opened his mouth, but no words came out. The judge banged his gavel. The witness will answer the question, not ask one. Understood. Your Honor, I turned to the judge. I did not plan this. I was protecting myself. As for the Hale family estate, I am claiming my legal inheritance rights, not seizing control. The trial continued. Damon was called to the stand. He sat in the witness box, his eyes hollow. Attorney Nelson asked him, Damon Cole, why did you kidnap Aurora Hale? Damon was silent for a long time. Then he said, because Lila needed a kidney. Why didn't you go through the legal organ donation process? Because she wouldn't have agreed. So you decided to force her. I didn't force her. Damon snapped, suddenly agitated. I gave her a choice. Marriage for a kidney. It was a fair trade. The courtroom went completely silent. Even the judge frowned. A fair trade. Attorney Nelson repeated the words. Kidnapping, drugging, falsifying medical documents, forcing a woman to give up her organ. And you call that a fair trade? Damon said nothing. He bowed his head, his shoulders slumping. When Lila was called to the stand, she completely broke down. She cried and screamed that she was innocent, that everything was Damon's fault, that she had no idea the medical records were fake. But Attorney Nelson pulled out the chat logs between her and Dr. Clark, and the testimony from her biological parents. The evidence was irrefutable. In my closing statement, I stood up. Every eye in the courtroom was on me. Mr. and Mrs. Hale, the Cole family's defense team, the reporters, the gallery, and Damon and Lila. Sitting in the defendant's box, I took a deep breath and spoke. My voice was calm, but every word was clear. I am not asking for a maximum sentence. I am not asking for leniency. I am only asking for the law to be applied, as it is written, in this society ruled by law. No one has the right to take another person's life or bodily autonomy, in the name of family, love, or any other excuse. No one can hurt another person, just because they need something from them. No one can commit a crime and hide behind love to avoid the consequences. That is all I ask. Thank you, Your Honor. I finished and sat down. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The judge and the jury conferred quietly. Then the judge banged his gavel. We will recess for deliberations. The verdict will be read at 3 p.m. I stood up and walked out of the courtroom with Vivian beside me. Reporters swarmed me in the hallway again, but this time, I didn't avoid them. Ms. Hale, are you confident in the verdict? I trust the law. Ms. Hale, will you ever forgive your family? Forgiveness is a choice. So is not forgiving. Ms. Hale, what are your plans for the future? Finish my degree, continue my research, and live my life. My answers were short, but clear. Mr. and Mrs. Hale stood at the end of the hallway, watching me. Mrs. Hale's eyes were red, and she tried to walk over, but Mr. Hale held her back. I looked at them and gave a small nod, a polite greeting. Then I turned and walked away. For lunch, Vivian and I went to a small diner near the courthouse. A simple meal, 2 dishes and soup. Are you nervous about the verdict this afternoon? Vivian asked. No, I said. I did everything I could. The rest is up to the law. You were incredible in there, she said. It wasn't about being incredible. I picked up a piece of broccoli with my chopsticks. It was about not having a choice. After lunch, we walked around a nearby park. The sun was bright. Kids running on the grass. Their laughter clear and carefree. I stood under a tree, watching them. I suddenly realized I'd never run like that. Never laughed like that. Before I was 16, living with my foster parents. I'd had to be responsible. Had to work. After I was 16, living with the Hales. I'd had to please. Had to hold my tongue. I'd never been able to just laugh. Just run. Like those kids. What are you thinking about? Vivian asked. I'm thinking when this is all over. I want to learn something useless. I said. Like what? Like dance. Or painting. I said. Not to win an award. Not to please anyone. Just because I want to. Vivian smiled. Good. I'll do it with you. At 3 p.m. sharp. We were back in the courtroom. The judge read the verdict. His voice was solemn. Every word clear and final. We, the jury, find the defendant, Damon Cole, guilty on all counts, for the charge of kidnapping in the first degree. We sentence the defendant to 7 years in state prison, for unlawful imprisonment, 3 years, for attempted aggravated assault in the first degree, 5 years. The sentences are to be served consecutively, for a total of 13 years in state prison. We, the jury, find the defendant, Lila Bennett, guilty on all counts, for solicitation of a felony, 5 years, for fraud, 3 years, for falsifying medical documents, 2 years, for extortion, 4 years. The sentences are to be served consecutively, for a total of 8 years in state prison. Bailiff stepped forward and tightened the handcuffs on both defendants. Damon collapsed into his chair, his legs giving out as the bailiffs pulled him to his feet. Layla screamed and struggled, and was forcibly led out of the courtroom. In the gallery, Mrs. Hale fainted. Mr. Hale caught her, his face ashen. The judge banged his gavel one final time. This court is adjourned. The crowd began to disperse. Reporters rushed forward, but were stopped by the bailiffs. I sat in the plaintiff's seat and didn't move. Vivian walked over and squeezed my hand. It's over. Not yet, I said. The estate case is just getting started, but the hardest part is over. I looked out the window. The sun streamed through the high courtroom windows onto the floor. It lit up the seal of the court. The scales of justice carved into the wood, and it lit up the path ahead of me. She was right. The hardest part was over. From here on out, every step was forward. I walked out of the courthouse as the sun was setting. Golden light flooded the street. I stood on the steps and took a deep breath. The air smelled like freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from my advisor. Aurora, your research proposal has been approved. The lab is yours starting next week. I replied, thank you, Professor. I won't let you down. 3 days after the verdict, the Hale family called. It wasn't Mr. Hale or Mrs. Hale. It was the Hale family's head housekeeper. His voice as respectful as always. Ms. Aurora, Mr. Hale is asking if you could come home to discuss some family matters. I held the phone to my ear, standing at the lab window. Outside, the medical school campus stretched out. Students hurrying by with their textbooks in their arms. What about? I asked, regarding the family's future arrangements. The housekeeper said, carefully, Mr. Hale would like you to come home. Just the family. To sit down and talk. Family. The word tasted like ash now. What time? This afternoon. At 3 p.m. If that works for you. I glanced at the lab bench. My cell cultures would be ready in 2 hours. That works. Very well. Ms. Aurora. I'll let Mr. Hale know. I hung up and went back to looking at the cells dividing under the microscope. Such tiny life, growing so fiercely. No resentment, no manipulation, just living. At 2:30 p.m. I left the lab. I didn't dress up. Just the white lab coat I'd been wearing all day. A plain t-shirt and jeans underneath. My hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup. When I got to the campus gates, Vivian's car was waiting for me. You really want to go in there? She rolled down the window. Yeah. I slid into the passenger seat. There's one last thing to settle. Do you want me to come in with you? No. I said. Just wait for me out here. The car drove up the hillside. This was the third time I'd come to the Hale family mansion. And my heart was completely different each time. The first time, at 16, nervous and hopeful. The second time, a few days prior, resolute and clear-eyed. This time, just calm. The iron gates opened slowly. The head housekeeper stood at the door. Bowing slightly. Ms. Aurora. I nodded and walked inside. The living room was just as I remembered it. Mr. and Mrs. Hale sat on the sofa. A tea set laid out on the coffee table, untouched. The air was thick and heavy, like the calm before a storm. Aurora. You're here. Mr. Hale spoke first, his voice hoarse. Sit. I sat down in the armchair across from them, a polite but distant distance away. Mrs. Hale looked at me, her eyes still swollen. Her lips moving but no words coming out. Mr. Hale cleared his throat. I asked you here today to talk about the family's future. Lila's gone. Sentenced to 8 years. Damon Cole to 13. This whole thing is over. As far as I'm concerned. I said nothing. He kept going. The Hale Group has taken a hit to its reputation, and the business has suffered. But those are temporary. They can be fixed. What I want to talk about today is you. He picked up a document from the coffee table and slid it across to me. This is an agreement to transfer 30 of the Hale Group's stock to you. As soon as you sign it, it's yours. I looked down at the document. It was perfectly drafted. The terms clear. 30 was no small amount. It was enough to set me up for life. Why are you giving me this? I asked. Compensation. Mr. Hale said. Bluntly. The family owes you more than we can ever say. This 30 is the least you deserve. Mrs. Hale finally spoke. Her voice thick with tears. Aurora. Mommy knows I was wrong, just take it. And come home to visit sometimes. I looked at them. A tired father. A remorseful mother. If this had been a month prior, I might have cried. Might have been touched. Might have accepted. But now, it just felt like a joke. Mr. Hale. Mrs. Hale. I said. I don't want charity. Mr. Hale froze. It's not charity. It's compensation. Is there a difference? I cut him off. Do you think giving me money will make up for 6 years of hurt? Will make me forget everything Lila did to me? Will make it like none of this ever happened? Mrs. Hale started crying again. Mr. Hale's face darkened. So what do you want? Do you want the Hale family to fall apart completely to be satisfied? I don't want anything, I said, but what I am legally entitled to inherit. I will not give up a single cent of. What do you mean? I opened my bag and pulled out a worn manila envelope. The edges were frayed with age. This was given to me by your father, Mr. Hale Sr. Before he died, I said. He told me it was what the Hale family owed me. Mr. Hale's eyes went wide. When did he give this to you? 3 years ago. A week before he died. I said. My voice calm. He called me to his hospital bed, gave me this, and told me not to open it unless I had no other choice. I slid the envelope across the table. Mr. Hale's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a will, handwritten by Mr. Hale Sr., with a lawyer's notarization attached. The terms were simple, but every word carried weight. I, Mr. Hale Sr., bequeath 45 of the Hale Group's outstanding stock to my biological granddaughter, Aurora Hale, 15 to my adopted granddaughter, Lila Bennett, the remainder to my son and daughter-in-law, should Lila Bennett be found guilty of harming Aurora Hale in any way. She forfeits all inheritance rights entirely. Mr. Hale finished reading and froze completely. Mrs. Hale leaned over to read it, then clapped a hand over her mouth. Dad, he never told us. Because he knew you wouldn't listen, I said. He knew the only person you ever saw was Lila. And that nothing I said would ever matter. These 6 years, I tried to tell you the truth, tried to explain what she was doing, tried to prove myself with my grades, but it never worked. So Grandpa left this for me. He said it would keep me safe. If I ever had nowhere else to turn. The living room was dead silent, only the sound of Mrs. Hale's quiet sobs. After a long time, Mr. Hale looked up at me. His expression was complicated shock, guilt, and a flicker of relief. You knew about this the whole time. I did. Why didn't you show it sooner? Because I still held out hope. I admitted freely. Hope that one day, you'd see the truth on your own. That you'd actually accept me as your daughter. But now I know. Hope is just hope. It never comes true. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the perfectly manicured garden, the fountain glinting in the sun. Beautiful, but fake. This will is legally binding. I turned back to them. Per Grandpa's wishes, I am entitled to 45 of the Hale Group's stock. Lila's share is forfeit. Because she attempted to harm me. The other heir. Mr. Hale, your 30 offer is kind, but I don't need it. I want what the law, and Grandpa's will, says is mine. 45. Mr. Hale leaned back against the sofa and closed his eyes. He looked 10 years older. Mrs. Hale cried. Aurora. Can't you forgive us? Well, do better. We'll be better parents to you. I promise. Mrs. Hale. I cut her off. Some things can't be erased with a promise to do better. I've heard too many promises over these 6 years. Lila's younger. Let her have her way. Lila's health is delicate. Take care of her. Lila didn't mean it. Just forgive her. Every time. I believed you. Every time. I backed down. And where did that get me? I walked back to the coffee table, picked up the 30 stock transfer agreement, and tore it cleanly in half. The pieces fluttered down onto the table. I don't want charity. I don't want forgiveness. I just want the justice the law gives me. Mr. Hale opened his eyes and looked at me. His gaze was tired, but clear. Okay, he said. Well, follow the will. My lawyers will handle the transfer paperwork. Mrs. Hale tried to say something, but he held up a hand to stop her. Aurora's right. His voice was soft, but firm. We were wrong. Terribly, unforgivably wrong. These 6 years. He stood up and walked over to me. The 45 will be transferred to you by the end of the week. Also, he paused. The doors to this house will always be open to you. Whenever you want to come home, you can. I looked him dead in the eye. Thank you for the offer, Mr. Hale. But I won't be coming back. We can stay in touch. But I won't live here again. 6 years has proven that distance is for the best. Mr. Hale's eyes glistened. He opened his mouth, but in the end, just nodded. Okay. I put the will back in my bag. My attorney will be in touch with yours to handle the stock transfer. Also, regarding Lila's time in prison if she gets sick. If you want to visit her, that's your business. It has nothing to do with me. I won't visit her. And I won't stop you from visiting her. That's all. With that, I turned and walked toward the door. Halfway there, I stopped and looked back. One last look at the place I'd lived for 6 years. The crystal chandelier, the leather sofas, the marble floors, polished, cold, foreign. Oh. Right, I said. I suggest you renovate this place. The style is suffocating. I pulled open the door and walked out. The sun was warm on my face. I took a deep breath and walked down the steps to the car waiting for me at the gate. Vivian leaned out the window. How did it go? All settled. I slid into the passenger seat. Let's go. Where to? Home, I said. My home. The car pulled away, driving down the hillside. I watched in the rearview mirror as the Hale family mansion got smaller and smaller, until it disappeared around the bend. Like a past ID left far, far behind. The car drove through the city and pulled up to my apartment building. I got out, walked upstairs, and unlocked the door. 400 square feet. Clean. Warm. Mine. I set my bag down, walked into the kitchen, and poured a glass of water. I drank it slowly, every drop. Then I pulled out my phone and texted Attorney Nelson. The will has been presented. Mr. Hale has agreed to honor the 45 stake. Please begin the transfer process. He replied almost immediately. Received. Also, the Cole Group money laundering investigation has been launched. The Economic Crimes Division raided the Cole Group headquarters this morning. I replied, good. I put my phone down and walked to my desk. I turned on my laptop and logged into the university's student portal. There was a new email from my advisor. Aurora, I've recommended you to give an oral presentation at the International Nephrology Symposium next week. Start preparing. I stared at the words and smiled. Real respect wasn't given as charity or as compensation. It was earned through skill, through opportunity, through equal respect. I replied, thank you, Professor. I'll give it everything I have. I closed my laptop and walked out to the balcony. The evening breeze blew in, carrying the faint smell of barbecue from the food stalls down the street. Kids were skateboarding in the parking lot below, their laughter loud and clear. The smell of stir-fry drifted over from my neighbor's window. Ordinary, real, warm. This was life. I walked back inside and opened the fridge. 2 eggs, a handful of spinach left, enough for a simple dinner. I turned on the stove, poured in oil, cracked the eggs. The sizzle filled the kitchen, the rich aroma wrapping around me. I hummed a tuneless song as I cooked and ate every last bite. While I was washing the dishes, my phone buzzed again. It was Mr. Hale. I hesitated for a second, then answered. Aurora, the lawyers have started the paperwork. Also, Lila's sick in prison. Acute appendicitis. She just had surgery. Oh, you don't have anything to say. Wish her a speedy recovery. Then back to serving her sentence. I said. Mr. Hale let out a bitter laugh on the other end of the line. You really don't have a soft spot for her at all, do you, Mr. Hale? Softness is a luxury, I said, and I can't afford it. I hung up, dried my hands, and walked to the bookshelf. I pulled out an old photo album from the bottom shelf and flipped it open. The first page was the family photo taken the day I first moved into the Hale house. 6 years prior. 4 people, all smiling. But the warmth in the smiles was different. I stared at it for a long time. Then I gently tore the page out, ripped it into tiny pieces, and threw it in the trash. The past belonged in the past. 1 year later. Autumn. The first day of graduate school at the medical school. I walked across the tree-lined avenue, my textbooks in my arms, fallen leaves crunching under my feet. The sun filtered through the branches, dappling the ground. A group of freshmen stood in front of the bulletin board, whispering and pointing at the honor roll display. The first photo on the display was mine. I was in a white lab coat, looking through a microscope. My profile focused. The bio beneath read, Aurora Hale, first-year nephrology graduate student, undergraduate GPA 4.0, 2 peer-reviewed publications in top medical journals. One girl whispered, that's Aurora Hale, right? The one from the trial. The boy next to her replied, she's even prettier in person than in the photos. I pretended not to hear and kept walking. When I got to the entrance of the teaching building, someone ran up behind me. Ms. Hale, wait up. I turned around. It was a round-faced freshman girl, breathless. Hi, I'm a first year. I want to study nephrology too. Can I ask you how to pick an advisor? I slowed my pace. It depends on your research interests and what the professor's working on. What do you think of Professor Lee? Professor Lee is strict, but he's an incredible mentor. If you're not afraid of hard work, he's a great choice. The girl's eyes lit up. Thank you so much. Oh, And Ms. Hale, I heard about what happened to you. It's so inspiring. I've been through something unfair too, but I've been too scared to stand up for myself. Seeing you made me decide not to stay silent anymore. Thank you. I smiled. You're welcome. Just remember your body, your life. They belong to you and you alone. Protect them. The girl nodded fiercely. Thank you. I'll let you know how it goes with Professor Lee. I checked my watch. I have class in a few minutes. I have to go. But feel free to find me if you have more questions. Okay. Thank you again. I walked into the teaching building. The hallway was busy with students. Some recognized me and whispered. Some waved and said, "Hi, Ms. Hale." I nodded back. My expression natural. My steps steady. I got to the classroom with 10 minutes to spare and sat down by the window. Opening my notebook, my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Hale. I answered. "Aurora, are you sure you want to come to the board meeting this afternoon?" "I'm sure," I said. "I own 45 of the company. I have every right to be there." "I didn't mean it like that, Mr. Hale's voice was weary. "I just mean some of the older board members might have things to say." "Let them say it," I said. "I inherited my shares legally. I have nothing to be afraid of." "All right," he sighed. 2 p.m. at the headquarters. Then, got it. I hung up as the professor walked into the classroom. The bell rang. The 2-hour renal pathology lecture flew by. I took 3 full pages of detailed notes. When class was over, the professor stopped me. "Aurora, have you finished your presentation slides for the international conference next week?" "Yes, Professor." "Good." He pushed his glasses up his nose. "There are a lot of leading experts coming. Make us proud." "I will." I walked out of the classroom. And Vivian called. "Aurora, lunch at the Noodle Diner. Our usual spot." "Sounds perfect." The Noodle Diner was a small family-owned place near campus. The owner knew us and smiled when he saw me walk in. "The usual. Beef noodle soup. Extra cilantro." "Yes, please." I sat down in the corner booth with Vivian and poured us both cups of barley tea. "You're really going to the board meeting this afternoon?" Vivian asked. "Yeah. First time as a shareholder." "Nervous?" "Not really." I took a sip of tea. "The people who should be nervous are the old men waiting to judge me." Vivian laughed. "You're a completely different person now." "Am I?" "You used to walk with your head down all the time. Now you walk like you own the world." She rested her chin on her hand. "And the way you talk. It's sharper, more sure of yourself. It's amazing." Our noodles arrived. Steaming hot. The rich aroma filling the booth. We ate in silence for a minute. Halfway through, Vivian said, "Oh, right. Lila's sick again in prison." My chopsticks paused for a second. "What is it this time?" "Acute appendicitis. Had surgery." The prison notified the family. "Your parents went to see her." She watched my face carefully. "Oh, that's all you're gonna say?" "Oh, what else am I supposed to say?" I picked up a piece of beef. "Wish her a speedy recovery." Then back to serving her sentence. Vivian laughed. "You really hold a grudge, don't you?" "It's not a grudge," I said. "I just have a really good memory." When we finished eating, I checked the time. 1:30 p.m. "I have to go. The meeting's at 2. I'll drive you." The Hale Group headquarters was in the middle of downtown. A 30-story glass tower. I walked into the lobby. And the receptionist stood up immediately. "Ms. Hale. Mr. Hale is waiting for you in the 28th floor boardroom." "Thank you." The elevator went up. The mirrored doors reflected my appearance. White button-down, black tailored trousers, low heels. My hair pulled back in a neat bun. I held a file folder with my share certificate and meeting materials. The elevator doors opened, and I walked out. The hallway was quiet, thick carpet muffling my steps. The boardroom door was ajar. Voices coming from inside. I pushed the door open. A dozen men sat around the long conference table. All the Hale Group's senior board members. When they saw me walk in, the conversation stopped dead. Every eye turned to me. Curious. Judgmental. Dismissive. Mr. Hale sat at the head of the table and nodded at me. Aurora, come sit. I sat down in the empty seat to his left, the seat that had once been Lila's. I've called you all here today to introduce our newest shareholder, my daughter, Aurora Hale. Mr. Hale said. She holds 45% of the Hale Group stock and will be participating in all major company decisions moving forward. A bald, older board member cleared his throat. Mr. Hale, with all due respect, Ms. Hale's background is in medicine, is it not? She may not have a firm grasp of the company's operations. I'm a medical student. I cut in. First-year graduate student at Arlington University School of Medicine. Then how can you be expected to contribute to board decisions? I can learn, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Furthermore, I believe healthcare and medical technology are critical growth areas for the future. The Hale Group would be wise to consider investing in the sector. Another female board member spoke up. Ms. Hale, I understand you've had some family troubles recently. It was a polite way of saying it, but the meaning was clear. The room went quiet again. Everyone stared at me. I set down my pen and looked up. Yes, I said. My ex-fiancé kidnapped me and attempted to force me into an organ transplant. My adopted sister falsified medical records and helped him plan it. They are both now serving lengthy prison sentences. The law has ruled on this matter. And I looked around the table, meeting every single gaze. Am the victim and the survivor, so I know better than anyone that business, like family, requires integrity. It requires a moral line. Without that, even the largest empire will fall. The boardroom was completely silent. Mr. Hale's mouth tugged up into a faint smile. The female board member nodded. Well said. For the rest of the meeting, I listened carefully and asked questions occasionally. Every question was sharp, on point about details in the financial reports, about risk assessments for new projects. The older board members' gazes shifted from judgment to respect, slowly but surely. When the meeting ended, Mr. Hale walked out with me. You did well in there, he said. Those old men are the hardest to win over. I just told the truth. In the elevator, Mr. Hale said suddenly, your mother, she misses you a lot. I was silent for a few seconds. How is Mrs. Hale's health? She's okay. Just not in a good place mentally. Lila's sentence hit her hard. He sighed. Time heals all wounds. I suppose. Time does. I said. The elevator reached the lobby. I'm heading back to campus. I said. I have a conference next week. I need to prepare. Okay. Travel safe. I walked out of the building, the sun bright overhead. Vivian's car was parked at the curb. How did it go? She rolled down the window. Smooth. I slid into the passenger seat. Back to campus. Please. The car pulled away from downtown. At a red light, Vivian said, there's something I wanted to ask you. There's a girl in a situation a lot like yours. Her family is trying to force her to donate an organ, and she reached out for help. Do you want to meet her? I watched the traffic flow by outside the window. Do you charge for the consultation? What? Consulting fee. I turned to look at her. I'm a medical student, not a therapist. Professional consulting is charged at the market rate. Vivian froze for a second, then laughed. You really haven't changed at all. I have changed, I said. I've just learned what I'm worth. So no free life advice. No, I said, firmly. Tell them this. The law is more useful than tears. Evidence is more useful than begging. Saving yourself is more useful than waiting for someone to save you. The light turned green. The car moved forward. When we got back to campus, I went straight to the lab. I put on my white lab coat, sanitized my hands, and started the day's experiments. Cell cultures, data recording, literature review. I worked until 9 p.m. When I walked out of the lab building, The night sky was bright with stars. I took a deep breath. The cool autumn air filling my lungs. My phone buzzed. It was my advisor. Aurora. I looked over your presentation slides for the conference. There are a few places we can refine. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9? Of course. Professor. 9 a.m. Works perfectly. I hung up and walked back to my graduate housing. It was a single room. Small, but enough. I took a shower and sat down at my desk, drying my hair, and turned on my laptop. There were a few new emails in my inbox. One from the conference organizers, with the final schedule. One from the Hale Group, with the quarterly earnings report. And one from an unknown address. The subject line read, "Thank you, Ms. Hale." I opened it. "Ms. Hale, I'm the freshman who asked you about picking an advisor earlier today. I heard about what you went through, and it gave me the courage to stand up for myself. I've been through unfair things too. But I was too scared to say anything until I met you. Thank you." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I replied, "You're very welcome. Always remember, your body, your life, belong only to you. Protect them fiercely." Sent. I shut down my laptop and climbed into bed. I closed my eyes, and images flashed through my head. The hospital bed a year prior. The restraints. The courtroom. The gavel falling. The living room of the Hale mansion. The torn-up stock transfer agreement. The boardroom. The judgmental stares of the old men. And that morning, the freshman girl's bright, hopeful eyes. It was like a long, dark tunnel. And I'd finally reached the end. The light was bright. The air was clean. And I could finally breathe freely. The moonlight slipped through the gap in the curtains, casting a faint line on the floor. I rolled over and fell asleep. I didn't dream it all that night. The next morning, my alarm woke me up at 7 a.m. The sun streamed through the window, bright and warm. I got up, brushed my teeth, changed my clothes. White lab coat, ponytail, no makeup. The woman in the mirror had clear eyes, a calm expression. She was ready for a new day, for new challenges, for a new life. I grabbed my bag and walked out of my dorm. A classmate waved at me in the hallway. "Morning, Ms. Hale." "Morning." I smiled back and kept walking. My steps were light and sure, toward the lab, toward the future.